Consistent access to it. I've created JotOnce, so if you go to jotonce.com, and then it'll have a little section there for you to put in a password. It is all lowercase, 2 words, SDCOE space esports. That will take you to, it should take you to a link. You'll click the link, it'll open up in a Google document where you're going to see 4 more links, and we'll be going over them. The first link that you will see is this. This is kind of like a brief overview of what we're going to be doing today, including another link to the slides which you have on that first document, as well as some clips that I've kind of curated to familiarize yourself with some of the games that our students are playing. The other thing that I'm going to also be providing you is this cheat sheet, which is a lot of the content that is in the slides is broken down here as well, just so you have a very quick reference point going forward. So I definitely recommend saving these documents, especially if you are a new coordinator and not familiar with all of the games that your students are playing. This will help you out understanding a lot what they're playing, the conversations they're having, stuff like that. The last thing that is linked there is a sign-up form for a coaching clinic, which I'll talk about later. So is, just in case anyone's not there, Karina, do you think you can put these directions in the chat? And then I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Thank you. So the objectives today, by the end of this session, hopefully I've gotten you guys to a place where you understand the various video game genres, as well as how current popular video games fit within those genres. And I also want you guys to be able to, if you understand the genres, because one of the things that we all know is that while there are some like anchor games that students have been playing for not, I wouldn't say a very long time, but for a decent amount of time, games like League of Legends has been around for at least 12 to 14 years. StarCraft 2, which still has an esports scene, although our students aren't really playing it as much, has been around since the 90s. So while there are current anchor games, there are new games consistently coming out, games like Valorant that came out just a few years ago, right? So if you understand the game genres, which don't really change very much when a new game comes out, you'll be able to apply it to these genres to have a better understanding immediately of not only what the game is, but how it's being played. And then on top of that, I want you guys to become familiarize yourself with the ESRB, which is an independent game rating organization that will assist you guys in making decisions in terms of what games are and what games are not appropriate for your school site, based on not only the rating, but the age of the students that you guys are serving. So a little bit about myself. My name is Mark Brickley. Again, I am a coordinator in the Educational Technology wing of the Innovation Department at San Diego County Office of Ed. My pronouns are he and him. And for me, esports is important because of what I did early on in my career. So I'm going to get to my why in just a second, but I do want to talk a little bit about myself. I have been in education for 15 years. I actually started in the after-school programs in elementary schools down in Chula Vista. I then became an avid tutor through college, and then I was a teacher getting my credential at San Diego High School, and then I was teaching at Eastlake High School for essentially 10 years up until October, this past October. I started an esports club at Eastlake High School around 2014, and we started doing events shortly after that. I've participated in a lot of video game events myself. It's one of my hobbies that I enjoy. The picture on your screen is actually me at an official Blizzard event for the Hearthstone seasonal championships, which took place in Santa Ana. And actually it's Anaheim that year. Sorry, they opened up a studio in Santa Ana as well. And I've actually, through that hobby, I've participated in all aspects of esports. And I'm excited for the opportunity in this new position to kind of grow esports in our region. So I remember the very, very first event I put on for Eastlake High School. We had an ASB dean at the time who prided himself on knowing every single student on our campus. And for those of you that, I'm assuming many of us don't know Eastlake High School since I'm not in Riverside. Eastlake High School is a student population of about 3,000 students. And our ASB dean prided himself on knowing every single one of those students. He was in charge of events. So he's at most of our events, and students would go to these events. And he always told teachers, if you're hosting an event, let him know and he will show up. And I remember that my students wanted to put on this League of Legends kind of like LAN party where students are going to come and play League of Legends, do a small scale tournament. And they wanted it to be on a Friday when we had like a major football game. And so I fully expected, like, I told our ASB dean about it. He was coordinating the football game. I fully expected him to be too busy and not show up. But to his credit, he showed up. And he walks in, and for about 30 seconds, he's quiet. He doesn't say a word. And he's looking around, and eventually he says, I have never seen any of these students before. And that was the moment that I realized we were tapping into a student population that historically does not engage in their school. And that was when I realized, and he realized, that this kind of stuff was extremely important. And from that moment going forward, I had full support of the school to promote and run and host these events. And what we saw was students that are participating in our programs through these events start having increased attendance rates, increased academic performance. And so for me, that was really, why is this important? Because it meets our students with their interests, and it hopefully gets students engaged and passionate about things that are happening at their school, and it will lead to positive outcomes, like future outcomes. So that's a little bit about me. I do want to know about kind of esports at your school site. So in the chat, tell me, what video games do you feel are most popular at your school site? And David, it is case sensitive, so please make sure that when you're typing SDCOE space esports, I encourage you to try it one more time with the just, all lowercase space esports on jotonce.com, and it should take you to a link to a Google Doc. And if you're still having problems, towards the end of the session, I'll help you get access to these documents. So what games do you feel are most popular right now at your school site?
We're using Mario Kart and Smash Brothers, is what we started using, but we're just in our infancy trying to get esports going.
Are you oh, and also it would help me out as well to say what the population of your school is. So David, I would, just from what you're telling me, I'm assuming middle school or under?
We're high school, actually.
High school.
Yeah, we just had a Mario Kart tournament. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, no, they are actually, Super Smash Brothers and Mario Kart is incredibly popular across all brackets. I also know in high school they tend to like a lot of other games that schools are hesitant about, like Valorant and things like that. Karina, thank you. David, those links will also take you to the resources there.
Thank you.
Okay, Deborah has middle school with Minecraft. Jason, Minecraft. Carrie, you work at the district office. We have, I'm assuming, Minecraft. Yeah, that's what I assumed. So I'm seeing a lot of Minecraft, some Nintendo titles, and those do typically, there's one title missing that I'm used to seeing, especially in like starting programs, because obviously schools want to go with some of the more safer games, which absolutely makes sense. How many of you guys are familiar with Rocket League? Rocket League, I see a lot when it comes to new programs. Is anyone unfamiliar with Rocket League? That might be a better question. So Rocket League, I always recommend whenever someone's looking to get started with a game or an event, I always kind of say Rocket League first, because it's an E-rated game. It's appropriate for everybody. It's literally cars flying through the air hitting a soccer ball. It's soccer, so like the concept is very simple to pick up. So I want to go over a lot of the terminology that our students will be using as you go through these programs, so that you know kind of what's happening. And Michelle, I am so glad that you are here, because that is, I want to take the person that really has not a strong understanding, and hopefully through this has a much more better understanding of what, not only like what the games are being played, but the conversations that are happening around the games. So common terminology just in general. This is the only slide I'm going to deal with this. If it's a PvE style game, that means player versus environment. Okay, so it is students playing against the game system itself. So Destiny 2 is a very popular PvE game that you see in esports, where there will be like a race to complete a dungeon. A dungeon is a isolated environment with a collection of NPCs, which are non-player characters. These are entities controlled by the game itself, and players are on a team fighting against the computer, essentially. So that's a PvE style game. And then you have PvP games, which are player versus player. The vast majority of esport titles are player versus player. They can be direct confrontation through, like Super Smash Brothers, where they're fighting each other, Rocket League, where they're trying to score goals. Those are all examples of PvP, even though like when you say PvP, sometimes people think like, oh, I have to like defeat my opponent. In Rocket League, you defeat them by scoring goals, right? Not directly defeating them in the space itself. And then you again, PC player character. This is what our students are controlling, the entity that our students are controlling. So in the case of Rocket League, it is one of the cars is going to be the player character. And then you have NPCs, which are the non-player characters. These are AI entities within the game. One of the games that's popular is called League of Legends, where players are in there, as well as like computer-controlled entities that they can fight to get experience. So it's a mix of NPCs and PCs. And we'll go over a lot more, but that's essentially what these four terms mean. PvE, player versus environment, they're playing against computers. PvP, they're playing against other players. PC, the entity the player is controlling themselves. NPC, what the computer is controlling. All right. So the first most popular type of game that we see when it comes to esports are shooters. And these are also the most controversial type of game. And they also, there's a lot of different types of games that qualify as shooters that people might not realize, including shooters that are rated age appropriate for middle school and up. And we're going to show some of that today. So the purpose of shooters is essentially to eliminate the opposing team and each player. This can be where each player has only one life. So this would be like a team survival type of game, or get a certain number of kills, which in turn would be a deathmatch style game, or, complete a specific objective like capture the flag or King of the Hill and stuff like that. And there are many, many different types of shooters with varying amounts of realism. And I'm going to outline that on the following slides. I don't want you guys to think that all shooters are the same and that all shooters are like Call of Duty, which are like mature rated and not appropriate for school. So I want to show what some of these look like. So the first one is Call of Duty, okay? And I want to show a first-person shooter. So the designation first-person shooter essentially means that your camera viewpoint is being displayed from the first person. Okay, so as you see on your screen, you're looking kind of through the eyes of the character holding the gun. And this is Call of Duty. So it's a much more realistic shooter. This shooter, for full transparency, carries a mature rating, means that through the ESRB, which means that is not deemed it is deemed age appropriate for 17 and up. So the vast majority of our students aren't even considered age appropriate for this game, even in high school. Okay, and I'm not advising we play this game in schools. I wanted to show it to you so you guys understood the difference between a mature rated shooter and Valorant, which is a teen rated shooter. Okay, so Valorant is rated age appropriate for 13 and up. And you can immediately see some differences on your screen where you have arguably an explosion, detailed in the center of your screen here. If I go back one slide, you see an explosion detailed here with this weapon that this character is carrying versus the explosion happening here, right? You see a level of realism that is scaled back significantly. There's a lot more cartoon elements within Valorant. Valorant is a teen rated shooter by the ESRB and rated appropriate for ages 13 and up. It also is first person, and it is rated actually a hero shooter. What a hero shooter means is that individuals in the game, players in the game, will pick a character, and the character comes equipped with certain abilities that are unique to the character, and someone else will pick a different character that has their own unique capabilities, and therefore there's another level of dynamic to the game where they have to strategize to create a balanced team to accomplish whatever objective is in play for the game, right? And so there's added levels of communication, critical thinking built into this game compared to a game like Call of Duty, where it might be something as simple as we're going to create a loadout, go in and eliminate the other team. So this is a teen rated shooter. The next shooter I'm going to show you guys is actually an E10 plus rated shooter, which means that's age appropriate for everyone 10 and up. And I want to really kind of hone in on this because the definition of shooter is not something we would always account in our brain or visualize. And what I'm showing you here is actually Splatoon. Okay, so Splatoon is a third-person shooter, and you can see in the center of your screen the character here. The camera is now in the third person. It's over the character's shoulder, right? And in Splatoon, it is paintball. They're essentially shooting paint at each other, all right? And this can be like a squirt gun style paint or like a paintball style. But ultimately, it is paint as the vehicle here. And obviously, it's very much in the cartoon realm. This is actually played on a Nintendo Switch and is rated E10 plus, but it does categorize as a shooter. And I want you guys all to be aware of this because not all shooters are equal. And if you're not well versed in the hobby, you might not have had the opportunity to learn that. And so I wanted to kind of address this in this way. The next type of game, which also kind of blends into the shooting category, are battle royale style games. Essentially, battle royale style games are any number of players, usually 100, being dropped into a slowly shrinking arena where they have to utilize resources found in the game, essentially to be the last person standing and eliminate all other players if it's solo, or teams or squads if it's in the form of teams of 2 or teams of 4. Teams of 4 is known as squads. Teams of 2 is known as duo. Essentially, your job is to just be the last entity standing, whether it's by yourself or your team. And an example of popular battle royales are Fortnite. The most popular one right now is Apex Legends. Both Fortnite and Apex Legends are teen rated. Then we have MOBAs, which are multiplayer online battle arena. Essentially, it's entirely team-based. Your objective is to destroy the opposing command center or major structure. You have a unique character that has unique abilities, just like in a hero shooter. But in a MOBA, you will be fighting not only other players, but AI controlled, NPC entities to gain experience, to level, to make, unique decisions, to specialize your character a certain way, depending on your team needs to accomplish its goal. And it's in a specific arena. You'll have like lanes where these enemies are, and your character will use those enemies to gain experience to, be more effective against the opposing team of players. You'll also be fighting against the team of players, but ultimately it doesn't matter how many kills you get or how many kills against, the AI or the players themselves. What matters is ultimately the only thing that matters is who destroys the opposing base first. That's it. And that is MOBAs. A very popular one is League of Legends. It kind of got started with Dota and Dota 2. Dota 2 isn't super popular. I would say the most popular traditional MOBA is League of Legends. However, if you are and that is rated teen, so it's something that would be deemed appropriate for 13 plus, so like high school age. However, in the middle school, E10 plus, we have Pokemon Unite, which actually has a very unique role. If you're not familiar with Pokemon Unite, I highly recommend you familiarize yourself because it is a free download on your phone. So you can immediately start doing events through phones, and you don't need this large infrastructure to do events. You just need students with phone access. And this is also a MOBA, and it is E10 plus. So everyone is age appropriate, everyone 10 and up, but it has a Pokemon theme. So this should be site decisions in terms of where it's appropriate, but a lot of students across all age groups are familiar with it because it's a Pokemon themed MOBA. It's played on the phone, it's free, it's very easy to have access to. The next type of game is sports. Most of these are one-on-one, like FIFA, playing soccer, NBA 2K, playing basketball, Madden is football, and then MLB The Show is baseball. Those typically are one-on-one games, but then you have two unique games, Rocket League and Knockout City. Knockout City is dodgeball and team-based, and Rocket League, which you see on your screen, is essentially a take on soccer where with cars that can fly through the air. Students tend to really enjoy this one a lot. So this is another really good kind of entry-level esport title that you guys can get into. They all, for the most part, are rated E for everyone. I'm not sure about Knockout City. I do have it in the presentation. I just need to double check. I don't want to make a statement and then be wrong. I know Rocket League is E for everyone. So if you're in an elementary school, this is also a great game to get started with. And then you have Minecraft, or sorry, you have survival type games. Minecraft kind of stands on its own. I'm going to talk about that in a second. You have survival type games. Essentially, players spawn in to a world, like a procedurally generated, unique world with little to no materials, and must harvest it from the world to survive. Often these games are played with the intention of building up a base and creating items to fight against various bosses scattered throughout the world. And survival style games are not typically considered esports. So why is it here? It is here because Minecraft is considered a survival game, but Minecraft is so unique that I wanted to include it. I need to include the genre, but you need to consider kind of separate from the survival mode because it has a lot of other game modes that students can play in an esports environment. For example, one of the more popular like mini games within Minecraft is Bed Wars or Sky Wars. These are two different games. In Bed Wars, they have a bed that they need to protect, and they're on unique islands. They scavenge resources, and they basically build structures to get access to other players' islands to ultimately destroy their bed. And then their job is to be the last person with a bed. And so essentially it's a battle royale, right? So it's a battle royale found within Minecraft. But there's also a lot of other versatility that Minecraft has beyond just directly fighting against other players. For example, what a lot of schools and districts have done is they've created build challenges, right? Where they're going to let their students go into a world for hours and they might have like a common prompt, right? For example, each team needs to build their, a representation of their hero. And after a set amount of time, you'll go in and independently judge their creations and then create a winning team that way. And teams can take it literally. They might make like Iron Man or Superman or Batman, or they can be a little more, creative with it, right? Some students in that case might build a hospital or a fire station, right? Or maybe it's a representation of a job that their mother does, right? And so it really is up to the creators themselves, but it gives them that freedom and that flexibility to kind of create these things it's still competitive, but you're not directly influencing that other player, right? You're going to be creating this thing, and it's modeled after a lot of like competition shows. You'll see this kind of style where it's these independent teams working isolated to create this thing that's unique to them, and then have it be independently judged. And you can do that style of game or that style of competition around Minecraft as well. The other really awesome thing about Minecraft is they actually have like built-in ways to teach code to students. So Minecraft is a very, very flexible game, and one that, because of this flexibility, is popular. I was very surprised how popular it was at the high school level as well. And it's popular K through 12 and even into college because of that. We also have fighting style games where you have Super Smash Brothers, probably the most popular game. Multiverses is trying to compete with Super Smash Brothers, but I don't see Super Smash Brothers being taken down anytime soon. I would say the other most popular fighting game is probably Street Fighter. For you guys, I would definitely stick in the realm of Super Smash Brothers. It is the most accessible, the one that probably students are the most familiar with, and it also has the easiest entry level rating through the ESRB. We also have strategy games, which is things like StarCraft, where you have real-time strategy where players start off with a command center, they build armies, they build their base, they build armies, and ultimately the job is to destroy the other base. Not super popular right now, but it is in here because StarCraft 2 is really the first major esports title that came into existence through Korea in the 90s and 2000s. And then we have turn-based strategy, which is similar to RTS games, but it is broken down almost like a board game where players are taking turns. And the most popular example of that is Civilization. And the reason I mentioned that is if you're interested, there's this link here about a teacher in the United States who has been using Civilization as a game as a focal point for his class teaching history. And he has a whole series on how to use Civilization to teach history. So if there's any history and social science teachers, which I have a history and social science credential, I also have an English credential, Civilization is a fantastic resource for that you can use. And there's a whole rabbit hole you guys can go down through that link. And I encourage you to explore it, but I'm not going to be covering it today. Another popular style of esport is the trading card game. This is, you can either do this through real cards or digital cards, where we have Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon, very popular trading card, physical trading card games. And then we have digital trading card games with Hearthstone is probably the most popular one. A good number of students see that one. We'll see play with that one. Legends of Runeterra is trying to compete with Hearthstone, as well as Magic Arena and Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, but none of them really come close to the player base that Hearthstone has. You will see some students play it it's not going to be the focal point of a program. And then the last one I want to talk about is chess. A lot of people are surprised to see chess here, but chess does count as an esport, and it actually is very, very popular because of Queen's Gambit, which I put on the screen here. I recommend chess.com is the most popular one. I recommend Lee Chess because they have all of the features of chess.com, but for free, and it's also a nonprofit. Both of these work very well, especially if you have students that want to do events on your school. You can use either of these pretty much free of charge. Lee Chess does have more options for events at your school for chess. And chess is rated E, in case anyone was wondering. So the last thing I want to talk about, and this is probably the most valuable thing for you guys now that you kind of understand the umbrella categories of games that students play, and this is always available for you to reference, and I encourage you guys to ask questions about it. The stuff that I've covered, because I've covered a lot very, very quickly. But this is probably the biggest takeaway for you guys, because the first thing when it comes to schools and districts making decisions about esports is essentially what is appropriate, like what should our students be playing. And a lot of times decisions in terms of what is or is not appropriate is based on a whim, based on a personal litmus test, based on whatever information one single individual at a school or at a district has seen lately about a game that they may or may not actually have familiarity with. And it leads to decisions that can put our students in positions that they shouldn't be. And it can also restrict and limit students from opportunities that they probably should have. And so I want to encourage familiarity with the ESRB. So the ESRB is a nonprofit self-regulatory body for the video game industry that provides guidance to consumers, specifically parents, in order to make informed decisions about which games are appropriate for their children to be playing based on age. And they have 4 major rating categories. They actually have more than that, but for our needs and for pretty much all major esport titles, they're going to fall under these 4 categories. E-rated means it's determined to be age appropriate for all ages. E10 plus is games appropriate for ages 10 and up. T-rated means teen, which is games appropriate for 13 plus, and then M rating, which is mature, games appropriate for 17 plus. So it becomes very, very clear to SDCOE that you could break this down by schools, right? So E-rated for all schools, E10 plus makes sense for middle schools and up, T-rated for high schools and up, and then the mature ratings, we're not really touching, and we don't really advocate schools play those games, okay? So I would encourage you guys to explore this a little bit. Let's take like 2 minutes. This link will take you to the ESRB's website, and some of the games that you know we're playing, go and type the title in and see what the rating is. So I know, for example, Super Smash Brothers has been mentioned a lot. Oops. So if you type Super Smash Bros, there's a lot of Super Smash Bros titles that have come out. So we'll just go with the latest one. We'll go with Ultimate. If we click Ultimate, you can see E10 plus, and it also says why it carries that rating. So you can know immediately what's going on, why it would be rated, what your students might run into, and understand, is this game appropriate for the needs of our stakeholders, for the needs of our community? And if you want a further, detailed breakdown, you can hit the essentially the see more button here, which is this arrow, and it'll further break down. So take a second and search for another popular game that you know is at your site. And I'll also take any questions for a few minutes now before we continue about the ESRB and about some of the stuff I've covered. Michelle, can Pokemon Unite be played on the Chromebooks? No. Short answer, no. there is a way you can play. There are programs out there that will allow you to install phone-based games onto computers, but that would be something that you'd want to talk with IT about. There is definitely, essentially, it's an emulator. You want to install like an emulator that would create like an Android or an iOS system on the computer itself. That's a little bit technical, so I would definitely talk with IT. So there is a way you can install these games on computers, on the PCs, but Chromebooks typically do not have a very large like storage space. And so that's going to be your hindrance there. But it can be played on the Nintendo Switch, and it can be played on phone. And I do think that Pokemon Unite is a great entry-level game for any school looking to create like an event or to have something for students to be playing, because it's very accessible, as long as, depending on obviously on the needs of the community, if whether or not students have access to phones. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes. I'm going to, hopefully you guys have had an opportunity to familiarize yourself with the ESRB. I do recommend you take a second to go to the ratings guide. And it has a brief information about all of the various rating games. And as I said, there are other ratings, but the ones that are relevant to esports and titles that you will see in your school sites are these 4. So these are the 4 main ones that you should look at. Okay. So I've also categorized everything that I've talked about in this presentation. So if you are in an elementary school, the E rating games, chess, Rocket League, NBA 2K22, Mario Kart, all of those are E-rated titles. Those are the very popular ones that you'll see at that level amongst your students. For E10 plus in middle school, you have Pokemon Unite, Super Smash Brothers, Splatoon 2. I actually think we're on Splatoon 3 now. And then we have Minecraft, and Knockout City. Minecraft being rated E10 plus is very surprising. I think should be surprising to everyone who is familiar with Minecraft. And I've actually marked with an asterisk Pokemon Unite and Minecraft, because there's a very strong argument that can be made that these could very much be appropriate in elementary schools. But because I am saying follow the ESRB, I don't want you to just blanket be like, yeah, we're going to play Pokemon Unite, or yeah, we're going to play Minecraft. In an elementary school, make sure you get like school and district approval. Make sure you get school and district approval for any of this regardless. But the reason why I want to highlight Minecraft here is that's how serious the ESRB takes these things, that they're going to label a game like Minecraft at E10 plus simply because there is going to be a, quote unquote shooting element where you can craft a bow and fire a bow at other players and other monsters, right? So they do take things very seriously, and they do err on the side of caution. And that's why you see Minecraft in E10 plus when you really see it being played for children much younger than that. The high school rated games, the most popular high school games you're going to see are things like Valorant is probably the most popular game right now in our schools. There might be some populations where Apex takes over from, might have a lead over Valorant. But typically those are the 2 games that you see vying for popularity. League of Legends historically, 4 or 5 years ago would have been the most popular game until Valorant kind of and even to some degree Overwatch took over that. Overwatch 2 is very popular right now because Overwatch 2 just got released about a month ago. And Overwatch 2, by the way, all of these games, let me just double check, except for Street Fighter. The multiplayer in game mode in all of these games is free with the exception of Street Fighter. So all of these games can be played for free. So if you're trying to get licenses and titles, they should all be free except for Street Fighter. Most of these titles either have no blood effects, period, or have an option to turn off blood effects. And the ones that do have blood effects with no option to do so have it in very, very limited specific capacities that aren't very prevalent across the gameplay. So these are the most popular T-rated games right now. And then games that must be vetted. So if you have students that are like these games are popular amongst our students, especially Call of Duty. If you're in high school, a lot of students are playing Call of Duty, but they must be vetted because they're 17 plus. This must be, we are not advocating anybody play these games because of the rating that they carry. But again, I showed you at the beginning of this presentation, there is a drastic difference between a mature rated title game / shooter like Call of Duty, Rainbow Six, and Counter-Strike, and a teen rated shooter like Valorant, like Apex Legends, like Overwatch 2. Okay. And so again, we are not suggesting that these games, just to be very clear, we are not suggesting that these games be played. Just these are games that your students are playing, and this is what the rating is on those games. So if they approach you about an event, I want you to know that you've been familiarized with it because of this presentation. So the last thing I want to talk about before I open it up to questions is if this has been beneficial to you and you want to go deeper into this and learn about how to essentially start your own program at your school sites, SDCOE is offering in February a virtual esports coaching clinic, which will be held on 4 consecutive Saturdays virtually from 9 in the morning until noon. And we cover a lot of different topics beyond just what I've covered today. So we talk about common concerns that the community typically has when it comes to video gaming, which ones are relevant and how do we minimize those, which ones might be not necessarily, which might be more misconceptions compared to concerns. We talk about careers that students may have in esports. We talk about benefits of esports, like what skill development is happening through esports that apply beyond just esports, but also to college and career readiness. We also talk about diversity and representation within the esports industry as a whole, not just on the screen, but also in these companies. How to have conversations with stakeholders on your campus and in your community. What does esports look like in the day-to-day at your school? How can you plan like these key anchor events for your program, as well as a lot of other things. So if you are interested and you want to know more information about this opportunity that SDCOE is offering, you can send me an email. My email's on the screen right there. Also, you have access to these slides, so you'll have access to my email through this presentation. And if you would like to register for the event, there's a registration link right there as well. With that, are there any questions about the content covered? I did cover a lot. I was actually expecting questions throughout the presentation. I don't actually believe I did that good of a job that I didn't get questions. So if you guys do have questions, please ask them now. Anything, whether it's about the coaching clinic that SDCO is offering or any of the individual things that I've covered. Hopefully you guys find the ESRB to be helpful, especially considering that schools and districts are having this conversation right now. So if you are getting in on the ground, discussing what games are appropriate or which games are not appropriate for a school to be playing, hopefully this helps you. And then also understanding the general categories of games our students are playing and where the popular games fits within them. So are there any questions from what I've covered? So Carrie, what are the best games to play on a Chromebook? I'm going to ask you a quick question because I want to make sure, because there are some Chromebooks with hard drive storage. So like, do your Chromebooks have storage on the laptop itself? Like, do you have the ability to install programs on the laptop? So that's going to be your biggest limiting factor, right? Because like, what site are like, what is the age of the student population at your site? So okay, so across the board. So I'm just going to very quickly go to the ESRB ratings then. So chess absolutely can be played. All right. Those 2 websites that I showed, LeeChess and chess.com, those are all done server side. So everything is stored through them. So you can just log into a website and play. You don't need to download anything. You just log into your account, you're playing chess. Okay, so chess is played easily that way. Rocket League is installed on the computer, same with NBA 2K. And then Mario Kart is a Switch only game. You cannot play that on the computers. Pokemon Unite is Switch and phones, as well as Super Smash Brothers and Splatoon. And I believe Knockout City is Switch as well. Minecraft will be installed. You can play Minecraft on the Chromebooks. There's a website but it's not going to be as, you're not going to have as much functionality as the installed version of Minecraft, but you can find websites where you can play, I believe, the Java version of Minecraft just on a web browser. I'm not sure how they save worlds or realms. That's a whole nother can of worms. But Carrie, what you can do if you want to send me an email and we can explore that together. But I do know that Minecraft, there is a web browser based version of Minecraft you can be playing. But I do know it's going to be a little bit limited, but at least we can play it that way. For high school, all of these games need to be installed or are played on a console, like Street Fighter. I think Street Fighter is on PC now. But yeah, they're either installed or on a console. I am double checking. Yeah. So if you don't have like storage on their personal, I'm assuming we're asking because have students been issued a Chromebook? Is that why? Yeah. So for the student Chromebooks, but like honestly, Carrie, like I don't think like they're not a bad investment. Like there's a lot of schools down in San Diego County that have invested in like not Chromebooks, right? They have like Lenovo laptops or they have iPads, and the students can't install anything on them anyways. They're so locked down, and individual teachers trying to start programs at their school sites are having issues getting, support installing them as well. And so whether you're a Chromebook or you have storage, it still is a difficult path to follow, because once you put a game on a device, right, then you have issues with the student playing the games in class, and that becomes an issue as well. So typically where we see schools investing in the esports infrastructure is they create assigned like rooms as like their esports room where they'll have like 10 systems, whether they're consoles. Like for example, in elementary school, typically elementary schools invest in Switches because the majority of the E-rated games are on Switch, and it's a lower entry, into esports compared to like a PC would be. But in high school, right, all of these games for the most part that you see on your screen are PC-based games, right? So then they need a PC. And middle school kind of finds itself in the middle, where half of the games that are popular and appropriate can be played on the Switch, and then the other half are on PC. And so middle schools are kind of in this weird gray area where they need to figure out what fits the needs of their community the most. So yeah, most schools are investing in devices on the side, if I can put it that way, not student assigned devices for them to be playing and accessing these things. Does that answer your question? And again, if you have any other you want any other help or support, please send me an email. I would love to have that conversation further. Jason, yeah, so a lot of schools are exploring that. It does limit your options simply because you're now in the Nintendo wheelhouse. But the nice thing is, especially if you're in elementary school, middle, and for some titles even in high school, like Mario Kart and Super Smash Brothers, wildly popular in high school. So it is a great entry into the esports field. And just so you guys know, a lot of colleges and universities are putting a lot of money into their own esports programs. UC Irvine and UCSD both have fully functioning esport arenas that they have events running through. I know at UCSD, I was actually just there a few months ago, actually less than a month ago, in their tech center. And they're putting a lot of money into scholarships for students as well as UCSD. And I think 2 years ago in 2020, colleges and universities awarded $16 million in scholarships to students. So these programs are very important that we start getting students these opportunities to display their skills. That's awesome, Michelle. I actually wound up I was accepted to UC Irvine. And I woke up the day of declaration assuming I was going to be going to UC Irvine. And when I went to bed, I was going to San Diego State because I realized my parents, before I accepted, they sat me down and they're like, hey, let's look at what you qualify for, how much money it is, and where's the money going to come from. And I realized I didn't want to take loans. So I went to San Diego State. That's how I wound up at San Diego County Office of Ed. Otherwise, UC Irvine was going to be my alma mater as well. I went there a little bit later, but that's awesome. That's fantastic. I have a lot of students that went through there, and they have a really, like, honestly, in California, UC Irvine is the powerhouse for esports. That's fantastic, Michelle. Thank you. How close is you? Pardon my ignorance. How close is UC Irvine to Riverside? Like, which one's closer? Is it? I'm assuming it's UC Irvine over UCSD.
I'm just going to unmute. It's easier.
That's fine. I'm glad I'm not talking to myself anymore.
UC Irvine is actually closer to Riverside. It's kind of like a triangle kind of thing. But when I lived there, I lived on the edge of Orange County, and I was like, if I drove fast, I can get to school in about 20 minutes. But when I went there, the entire student body was less than 15,000.
Wow. That's a change. It is a small city now. I've been there.
When I went there, it was very, very tiny. It was in one little corner. I mean, we didn't have the bridges going over. It was very, very small.
That's amazing.
It was $290 a term.
So I can't speak for UC Irvine. I don't have the same level of connections at UC Irvine as I have at UCSD, but I know the director of esports for UCSD, and I also know a lot of people in they're the Tritons. I know a lot of people in the Triton Gaming Network at UCSD. So it looks like depending on where you are located in Riverside County, one may be closer than the other. If you guys wanted to like see what UCSD is doing and see their facilities, send me an email and I can get you in contact with the people to do so. I know that they are very supportive of high school and lower esports across San Diego County, and I'm sure it would extend beyond that, especially if you guys wanted to go to them and see what they're doing. So just send me an email for that. I can't make any promises. I cannot speak for them, but I can get you in contact with the people to see their facilities. Any other questions? We have 3 more minutes. Any other questions I can help out with here? And yeah, I'm glad to help, Jason. I'm glad to help. Thank you for the feedback. I do want to say that the training that SDCOE is offering, the clinic, is not this style. It's a lot more hands-on, working together and kind of creating things authentically. I kind of had to go in this style because I want to make sure I was for the symposium. So if you are interested in that, please feel free to send me an email and I'll give you guys more information. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, Jason. And thank you to everybody for participating. I hope you guys have a fantastic evening and enjoy the rest of the symposium. Bye, everybody.